The world was already on edge. Tensions simmered across continents, with every headline and every rumor adding to a growing sense of dread. In capitals from Washington to Berlin, leaders braced for the next crisis, knowing that the fragile peace could shatter at any moment. In the early hours of April 24, 2025, Russian missiles struck Kyiv, killing 12 and injuring dozens. The city was rocked by explosions, sirens wailed through the night, and families huddled in shelters, fearing what might come next. The world watched in horror as the violence escalated. As dawn broke, another shockwave hit, not from the battlefield, but from President Trump's social media. In an era where information travels faster than missiles, a single post could change the course of history. At 2 a.m. Eastern, Trump posted on Truth Social, "Vladimir, stop!" A message that was as brief as it was seismic. The world's attention snapped to his words, searching for meaning in their simplicity. He called the strikes not necessary and very bad timing, focusing more on disruption than devastation. His words seemed to weigh the political consequences more than the human cost, leaving many to wonder about his true priorities. This wasn't traditional diplomacy, it was a personal plea, or perhaps a command, that left the world guessing. Diplomats scrambled to interpret the message, unsure if it was a threat, a warning, or simply a moment of frustration broadcast to millions. The post shattered the Western consensus on Ukraine, dividing supporters and alarming allies. Some saw it as bold leadership, others as reckless provocation, and the rift between nations grew deeper. Trump's final line was a cryptic warning: things will happen if Russia didn't listen. The ambiguity of his words only heightened the anxiety, fueling speculation and fear across the globe. The ambiguity sent governments and markets scrambling to interpret his intentions. Financial markets tumbled, emergency meetings were called, and uncertainty rippled through every corner of the globe. In a single post, the old rules of global order were upended overnight. The world was left to wonder what would come next, as the boundaries between diplomacy, power, and social media blurred like never before. Shockwaves rippled from Washington to allied capitals as the world tried to process the implications of a single, unexpected message. For years, U.S. policy was clear: support Ukraine, confront Russian aggression, and stand shoulder to shoulder with allies in defense of democracy. Trump's post upended that doctrine, addressing Moscow directly and signaling a dramatic shift from collective security to unpredictable, personal intervention. His tone, calling civilian deaths bad timing, trivialized tragedy, unsettled allies, and left many questioning America's moral compass. America's partners wondered if their security was now subject to Trump's whims and personal relationships, rather than shared values and commitments. At home, the post polarized. His base saw bold, decisive leadership, while critics saw recklessness and a disregard for global stability. The message deepened America's political divides, turning foreign policy into yet another front in the ongoing culture war, fueling heated debates across the nation. Globally, it replaced predictability with uncertainty, leaving allies and adversaries alike unsure of America's next move. Alliances depend on trust, and Trump's post replaced decades of precedent with a question mark, casting doubt on the future of international cooperation. The world was forced to reassess its relationship with the U.S., recalculating risks and reconsidering old assumptions. American leadership suddenly felt unpredictable and unreliable, leaving a sense of unease that would echo far beyond Washington. Markets hate uncertainty, and Trump's post sent them reeling. European stocks tumbled, U.S. futures plunged, and investors feared a sudden U.S. foreign policy pivot. In Brussels, NATO officials scrambled, with Secretary General Rutte reaffirming the alliance's core beliefs and urging higher defense spending. In Asia, allies like Japan and South Korea worried a deal favoring Russia could set a dangerous precedent. The post signaled that America first might mean America alone, leaving allies vulnerable. The vast US-led alliance, the bedrock of global commerce and security, suddenly looked fragile. Trump's words cracked the foundation of trust that underpinned the post-war order. The shock of Trump's post soon gave way to alarm as details of his Ukraine peace plan emerged. The plan, led by envoy Steve Witkoff, demanded Ukraine cede all Russian-occupied territory, including Crimea. This wasn't negotiation, it was surrender, reversing years of Western policy. Trump claimed Russia's concession was not conquering the rest of Ukraine, framing survival as victory. European capitals were horrified. The plan rewarded aggression and shattered transatlantic unity. Eastern European nations, especially the Baltics, saw their worst fears realized. The proposal exposed a rift between Trump's transactional approach and Europe's values-based commitment. Instead of peace, the plan brought the Western alliance to the brink. America's allies responded with diplomatic restraint and private panic. European leaders accelerated plans for strategic autonomy, fearing U.S. abandonment. Calls for higher defense spending became urgent, not to appease Washington, but for survival. In Asia, leaders in Tokyo and Seoul saw the Ukraine plan as a green light for Chinese aggression. U.S. credibility as a security partner was in doubt, undermining years of coalition building. Trump's aggressive trade rhetoric, tariffs on China, and threats against allies added to the anxiety. Security partners now faced economic threats from Washington as well. The alliance felt less like a partnership, more like a protection racket. In the digital age, a single late-night post can ignite a global firestorm. Now that very post has brought the post-war alliance to an existential crisis, shaking the foundations of trust built over decades. America's closest friends, once unwavering, now openly question the reliability of the nation that built the very system they depend on. Doubt and uncertainty ripple through every conversation. The outcome of Ukraine negotiations could fracture NATO, the cornerstone of Western security, and leave Europe exposed to new threats and old fears. Economic volatility looms large, as trade wars and tariffs threaten to unravel decades of global stability and prosperity. Markets react with anxiety, and businesses brace for impact. Allies now face a stark choice: accept policies they see as dangerous, or risk economic punishment and political isolation. The stakes have never been higher. The weaponization of trade, once unthinkable, now threatens to dismantle the very system America created, putting jobs, industries, and livelihoods at risk worldwide. In response, nations are rethinking their security and economic ties, forging new partnerships, and reducing their dependence on Washington's leadership. Adversaries see opportunity in Western division, moving quickly to exploit rifts and expand their own influence on the world stage. The world stands at a crossroads. Will the alliance bend and adapt? Or will it finally break under the weight of its own contradictions? The future of sovereignty, collective defense, and international law hangs in the balance, as leaders everywhere search for answers in an increasingly uncertain world.